Loader and you, friend, on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Good morning, David. How are things in Kentucky? A little bit of music there from Joe and Woody and the boys of the road crew. Kind of grateful for that little tune they came up with for us. Sums up things quite nicely here in Jim Hinckley's America. Hey, good morning, mi amigos. How's everybody doing this morning? You know, I'm always so glad you can join us, and I hope you invited a few friends. Going to have a little bit of fun today, and today's program is a sneak preview. More on that in a few minutes. And you know, in the past I've talked about Clark Gable and Carol Lombard getting married here in Kingman, but we're going to talk about a few other different things today. And didn't get a chance to include this, but fodder for another program. Andy has been sending me some information about his work at the Ford Proving Grounds out at Yucca, Arizona, and having the privilege to work with A.J. Foyt and a few other legendary race drivers. I want to give a shout out to Keith. Hey, let's all give Keith a warm and say happy birthday to Mr. Keith this morning. The subject this morning is Kingman, Arizona, and its association with movie stars, topless celebrities, legendary cowboys, and a tad bit of Hollywood history. This is a golden opportunity to prepare for an appearance on Jeopardy, or come up with a bit of trivia to stump some friends, a little water cooler conversation. And you've heard me say this before, or as my pa would say, a great chance to fill the head with useless knowledge. Let's kick it off with a bit of something old and something new. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It's a 1998 film directed by Terry Gilliam. It starred Johnny Depp, Benicio del Toro, Tobey Maguire, and Michael Lee Goguen. It's an odd movie. But that really shouldn't be much of a surprise, as Terry Gilliam of Monty Python's Flying Circus was involved. I gotta be honest, I've heard a lot about this movie, but I watched it for the first time this last week. To be polite, it was a bizarre movie. A little too bizarre for my taste. But there is a Kingman connection. The last scenes in this movie were filmed at the airport, which is the old Kingman Army Airfield. Now, the Kingman Army Airfield was established in 1942. And for a short time, in 1943, the air traffic controller was a fellow named Clayton Moore. You might best remember him as the fellow wearing a mask, riding a horse named Silver, and chasing banditos with his sidekick Tonto. He was the Lone Ranger. As a little bit of a historic footnote, the control tower is no longer in use, but it still stands at the Kingman Army Airfield. And it's one of only a few World War II era control towers still standing. I'm going through some research and really digging deep. I'm working with Kingman Main Street to develop a narrated historic district walking tour. You can find more information on that at kingman.tours. Anyway, I've been digging deeper and deeper into this history of Kingman. And right now, the earliest motion picture made in the Kingman area that I'm aware of is Ace of the Saddle. It was filmed in 1919 near Hackberry, Arizona, a few miles west of Kingman on Route 66. Harry Carey and his crew, they stayed at the Hotel Beale. Now, I don't know much about the film. Michelle Drumheller has done more research on this because of her family connection to the Duncans. To the best of my knowledge, there are no known copies of this movie in existence. But of particular interest is the filming location, a ranch owned by George Taplin Duncan, better known as Tap. Now, this guy is one of those larger-than-life fellas. Duncan was the real deal. He was friends with Will Rogers and other celebrities at the time. I just have found 2 references to Will Rogers here in Kingman, but I'm assuming that since Duncan and Rogers knew each other, there's a tie-in here somewhere. Anyway, through Will Rogers, and Duncan was a friend of a lot of celebrities of the time, teens and 20s. And I think this is why his ranch in the Hackberry area was used for the filming of Ace of the Saddle. You know, separating fact from fiction, that's always a challenge when it comes to history. And it becomes more of a challenge when we get into Western frontier history. Myth and legend has really made it hard to find the truth. Duncan's story is not exempt from this. He was born in San Saba, Texas, to a ranching family. For reasons not exactly known, his brother was arrested and hung in about 1890. And Duncan was ranching in Idaho in the 1890s, and he tangled with some boys that rode with the Wild Bunch, a gang led by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Well, Duncan came out on top, and the court ruled the murder was in self-defense. But Duncan was apparently a pretty smart fella, and he got to thinking that longevity would probably be better if he didn't stay in Idaho. So he and his family felt that relocation was in order. So they lit a shuck from Mojave County, Arizona. Now, Kid Curry was an infamous outlaw of the time, and he too was from the area of San Saba, Texas, and his family and the Duncans were acquaintances. So when Curry escaped from a jail in Arkansas and he set out for Colorado, he assumed the alias of Tap Duncan. You can already see the blurring here, where it's difficult to separate stories. Anyway, that created a bit of confusion when Curry was killed after committing a train robbery near Parachute, Colorado. And he died using the name Tap Duncan. Well, that definitely muddied the waters years later when people tried unraveling Tap's story. And there's another Hollywood connection with Tap Duncan. Now, this is the movie I had on the opening screen today, and I asked you, do you know what name this is? The movie is Go West. It was filmed in 1925 at Duncan's Diamond Bar Ranch north of Kingman. That, by the way, is, like say, the cover photo this morning. During filming, Buster Keaton set up his headquarters at the Hotel Beale. Duncan's ranch today goes by the name Grand Canyon Western Ranch. It's a dude ranch of sorts near Grand Canyon West, best known for the glass-bottom skywalk out over the canyon. It's a fun movie. You can watch it on YouTube. The exciting and laughable climax is a cattle stampede in downtown Los Angeles, near what would become the western terminus of Route 66 a year later. Let me grab, just a second here, let me grab a throat lozenge. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Fatty Arbuckle makes an appearance in this movie. Another thing that's really interesting about the climax of this movie, it's filmed near what would become the western terminus of Route 66 a year later. I do apologize if there's a little bit of noise in the background. The air is a bit loud this morning. I don't know quite why. It's been the same all summer. Now, I mentioned that this morning's program was a teaser, a sneak preview. Well, on October 16th, I'll be making a presentation about Kingman's rich celebrity history. This will be at the Mojave Museum of History and Arts in Kingman. The program is sponsored by Sounds of Kingman. It's really going to be a fun program because we're going to get into Louis Chevrolet and Barney Oldfield and Clark Gable, Carol Lombard, Andy Devine, sports stars, all kinds of things. So if you're in the area, this might be something of interest. That's October 16th. The celebrity history of Kingman, as I mentioned earlier in the program, that's a component also in the narrated self-guided tours I'm developing for Kingman Main Street. And you can get a sneak peek of the project at Kingman.tours. And when you're on the homepage, just simply click on Sample Tour. For something a bit more personal, book a Route 66 tour or holiday in the Southwest with me amigos at Route Trip USA. And when you do that, add a walking tour in Kingman with me as your guide. Now, these walking tours will be customized to your interest and physical abilities. And in addition to the celebrity history, I'll share with you tales of Route 66, colorful characters, a few personal stories, and I'll share some sites that are often overlooked by travelers and locals alike. And it's never too early to plan a Route 66 adventure. And Route Trip USA, these folks specialize in making road trips memorable for all the good reasons. And as you can see, Canada's getting ready to open, and fall is a great time to experience the wonders of Canada. And Road Trip USA, that's the place to do it. Okay, well, let's do this. How about a little bit more of this celebrity history? Here's one for you. Pamela Anderson was in town for a Playboy photo shoot that was Route 66 themed. A lot of the pictures were taken at the Quality Inn, which is now a Roadway Inn, and that originally opened as a Ramada Hotel in 1964. Well, to say the very least, she stirred up a bit of controversy in Kingman during the shooting. A lot of it took place downtown at a service station and garage along Route 66. Well, a formal complaint was filed, the police paid a visit, and as the story goes, she was escorted to the police station where she was then made a formal apology. How many of our listeners this morning are fans of the prolific author Louis Lamour? You know, between Louis Lamour and Zane Grey, I think those two writers, boy, I tell you, they inspired a generation or two or three to explore the Southwest and to fall in love with the West. I know it really affected me a lot reading his books. Some of his books, by the way, have Kingman connections. Well, anyway, in the 1920s, Louis Lamour was working at the Catherine Mines. Now, this would be on the Colorado River west of Kingman. A lot of people don't know this about Louis Lamour, but he was an amateur boxer. And during his time here in the 1920s in the Kingman area, there was a boxing ring at the Sump Bar. Now, this was located in the cellar of the Hotel Beale. Amateur boxers, some semi-pros, and traveling pros won a few rounds there during those years. One of the most famous competitors to stop by just happened to be traveling through town. It was an impromptu, unpublicized event. He was just simply a guest at the Hotel Beale and heard about the sump, went down to have a beer, and the rest, they say, is history. You might remember the fellow, or heard the name. His name was Jack Dempsey. You know, I try to keep this thing in about a half hour, and I don't want to go too long on this. And before I get too far along, I sure want to give a shout out to Miss Connie at the delightful Wagon Wheel Motel in magical Cuba, Missouri. You know, those folks have some celebrity history as well. Amelia Earhart paid them a visit. And, of course, Amelia Earhart was here in Kingman as well. She was here for the ribbon cutting of the TAT Port Terminal Kingman building in late 1928. Charles Lindbergh was here for that. They both were guests of the Hotel Beale. The Wagon Wheel Motel is not just the oldest continuously operated motel on Route 66. In my opinion, it is a true gem. And the Route 66 adventure just is not complete without a stay at the Wagon Wheel. And don't forget, you know, for breakfast, Shelley's right down the street. Great place. Little small, but it's a great local old-fashioned diner. But here's a tip for you. My favorite, my go-to place in Cuba is the Cuba Bakery and Deli. Now, when you follow Route 66, you go down past the four-way cafe, the four-way intersection with Highway 19. You go 2 more blocks. This is Washington Street. And then you turn left 1 block, Main Street. And if you look to your right, you'll see the Cuba Bakery and Deli. This is a Mennonite-owned bakery. Taste treats, fresh bread, breakfast sandwiches, all their specialty. That is a way to start a day. I'll tell you something I like doing too. If you let Connie know that you're coming back, she'll put on some coffee and pick up some pastries and rolls, muffins down at the bakery and deli. Wander back to the Wagon Wheel for some coffee and bring enough for the people that come in, and it turns into an impromptu visit with Route 66 travelers. Great way to start your day. You know, and I want to say hats off to Angela Moreland. She's breathing new life into the circa 1956 Cactus Inn Motel in McLean, Texas. As a historic side note, McLean was the last town on Route 66 in Texas to be bypassed. And kind of a neat little tidbit there. Since we're talking Route 66 motels and Route 66 communities, a little celebrity history. Let me give a plug for the amazing Roadrunner Lodge and Tucumcari. These two places go hand in glove. Does anybody remember the show Rawhide? How about Wagon Train with Whiskers the Cook? Whiskers the Cook was born in Tucumcari, and some episodes of Rawhide were actually filmed in Tucumcari. When it comes to the Roadrunner Lodge, David Brenner and Amanda Brenner, you know, they've created quite a gem. When you see promotion proclaiming this as a 1964 swank, it's not an exaggeration. They have tremendous care has gone into presenting the impression of time travel, but while providing the amenities the modern traveler expects. It's an ideal place to wrap up a day of adventure on Route 66 and the home away from home while exploring Tucumcari. And while you're in Tucumcari, check out the amazing Mesa Lands Dinosaur Museum Natural Sciences Laboratory, the Route 66 Museum, and the Railroad Museum and the renovated depot. And you might stay in town for a day or two, make a few day trips to interesting places like Nara Vista, a ghost town just west of the Texas state line. Going back to Kingman and the celebrity history here, the deeper I delve into the history of this town, the more amazed I become. I'm turning up that the Chicago Cubs, the Pittsburgh Pirates played here. I'm finding, like I say, that of course I knew about the Desert Classic auto races, and that Lewis Chevrolet, Barney Oldfield, they came through town in 1914. I recently found that the Queen of the Netherlands visited Kingman and stayed here for an evening. Of course, I've mentioned Edsel Ford on a variety of programs. Today, Andy informs me about A.J. Foyt and a few other racers that have been associated here in Kingman. I recently learned that the grandson of Augie Duesenberg had lived in Kingman for many, many years. Augie and Fred Duesenberg were, of course, the brothers that put the Duesenberg automobiles on the road. Pretty astounding history. So I really hope that you can join us on the 16th here in Kingman, Mojave Museum of History and Arts, and we'll see what we can get done with that. I think you'll have a great time. I want to say a thank you to our crowdfunding supporters on the Patreon platform. So many of our projects, especially educational initiatives, they just wouldn't be possible without our supporters. Before I get to your questions, and if you have questions this morning about Kingman celebrity history, you can text me at 928-897-7766. And I want to invite you to join us next week. And invite your friends. Even if they're not automotive enthusiasts, I'm really confident you are going to enjoy this. I'm going to introduce you to a fascinating and inspirational fellow named Charles Nash. And there's a travel component in this. We're also going to take you to some sites associated with Charles Nash. This fellow is more than a rags to riches story. This is a fellow who came from nothing, created an empire, transformed, made huge contributions to the automotive industry, and yet remained humble. Never, ever forgot his origins or where he came from. It's going to be a lot of fun. Charlie Nash is a real hero of mine, a real role model. So let's get to your questions this morning. I'm not surprised. One of our first questions being texted me this morning is Clark Gable, Carol Lombard, the marriage in Kingman and honeymoon in Oatman. Well, they did marry in Kingman. March 1939 at the Methodist Episcopal Church on 5th and Spring Street. Still there. Now it's a county building. There was a short little reception afterwards at the Brunswick Hotel. This was around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As to the honeymoon in Oatman, well, the next morning about 8 o'clock, they were in Los Angeles for a press conference. So, if they honeymoon in Oatman, it was short, to say the very least. And the other problem is, I understand they drove back on 466, not Highway 66. Yeah, Keith, I know it's your birthday. I asked everybody to say happy birthday to Keith. I'm not going to sing happy birthday. I'll tell you what, that's not something we want. Yeah, we're trying to gain an audience, not drive them off. Good morning, Jill. How are you doing? Debbie, how are things up in Seligman? We sure are overdue a visit. I got to get up your direction soon. Good morning, Laura. Yeah, I think, Andy, that Keith's celebrating his 21st birthday at least twice. Good morning, Lulu and Maggie, all the way from Michigan. And Nolan, Shamrock, I hope you're staying at the Western Motel with Mr. Patel and his family. Wonderful folks there, absolutely warning. Brian, good morning. Hey, you've sure got an interest in local history. You need to give me a holler, And let's see if we can get together some coffee. I'm building a team to put this Kingman Main Street project together. Why, Laura, thank you. Well, I don't know if he was the last real cowboy from the area. There's been quite a few here, but Tap was definitely the real thing. That old boy, there was the real thing. And I come up, during my John Wayne period when I was a kid. I worked out at Cane Springs with John Neal and some of the boys out there, Leonard Neal, and I can't really say that they weren't the real deal. Some of those boys were, I tell you, they had the bark on, and they had worn a lot of leather off the tree over the years. Jim, good morning. Andy, let's see if we can make that possible. I didn't think of that, but possibly I'll see if they'll let me do this as a live stream program. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, there's a few. No, I don't know of any real major celebrities here, but we do have a fella. He was an stand-in and did a lot of the stunt work for the television program Route 66. I'm working with a project with him right now to try to get, I believe it's George Maharis, for an interview on one of our programs. You got people like Greg Arnold, a pretty well-known artist here. We've got quite a few little authors and artists around town that are moderately well-known. We got some people from Kingman. Cody Custer, the rodeo stars from Kingman. Bob Bosbell. You'll have to be more specific about what hot actress, Andy. No, I don't know about that. The celebrity status, Andy. I never think of myself quite that way. Bob, yeah, he's quite a character. Maggie, A.J. Foyt and the boys were down at the Ford Proving Grounds in Yucca, Arizona, about 20-25 miles west of Kingman along Route 66, I-40. Jim, good morning. Well, very good, Nolan. Very good. I have not tried the Shamrock Country Inn. I'll add that to my list. Now, I got a couple of text messages here from people with questions. Andy Devine. Okay, well, I believe it was Andy can correct me if I'm wrong. Route 66 in Kingman was known as Front Street. Then in 1955, or 56, I think it was 55, they did a special program, This Is Your Life, profiling Andy Devine. And they renamed Front Street Andy Devine Avenue. Another little plug for you. Third Saturday of this month, I believe it's the 18th, Chillin' on Beale, Andy Devine Days, all the big events. I'll be speaking down at Chillin' on Beale, giving just a real brief presentation, a little trivia, a little fun about Andy Devine. I know for a lot of the younger folks, most anybody under 60, Andy is pretty much forgotten, but this fellow is quite a deal. He played in movies or did his distinctive voice to animated films from the 1920s all the way up into the early 1970s. And he was prolific, as an understatement. And was a sidekick to Roy Rogers, the Wild Bill Hickok series. He pioneered a children's television program as programming for television as well, late 40s, early 50s. He had a kids program with Froggy. No, Andy Devine was not born. The question is, Was Andy Devine born in Kingman? No. He was actually born in Flagstaff, Arizona, but he moved here as a very young child. His father, Thomas Devine, had acquired the Hotel Beale here in Kingman, Arizona. Well, good question. I have a question here from Martha asking why Clark Gable and Carol Lombard married in Kingman. Got no idea. I've never found an answer for that. And it's kind of interesting. They just literally, with I think it was Otto Winkler, his agent, it was between when they were filming Gone with the Wind, and it was just a rush deal. I mean, they drove over from L.A. That morning, got married in Kingman, and then turned around and hightailed it back to California. No idea why. I've got a question here from George. No, I'll have to let you find your own pictures, George. I don't have I do not. And I don't think I'd be putting them on the program. Asking about pictures of Pamela Anderson's Playboy photo shoot. And now, technically she was not arrested, but she was escorted to the police station. George, thanks for that smile this morning. Let's see what else I've got here. All right. Ernest, I'd have to check on that. Ernest says that Harry Carey, he says he does not know for sure, but he asked if Harry Carey filmed other movies in the Kingman area. He belongs to a silent movie group. They were talking about Harry Carey a few months ago, and there was mention of a second movie, a follow-up, a sequel to Ace in the Saddle that was also filmed in the Hackberry area. That one I've got no clue. That is totally new to me. Anybody out there, Andy? Any ideas? North Front Street, okay. Front Street is now Topeka. I do stand corrected. Thank you, Andy. Well, do we have any other questions? Anything else I can answer for you this morning? Well, like I say, I hope you can join us next week. We're going to combine two of my favorite things. Actually, three of my favorite things. We're going to be talking about inspirational people, in this case, Charles Nash. We're going to be talking about automotive history, the Nash automobile, the origins of Rambler, Jeffrey, GM, and Buick. And we're going to be talking a little bit about travel, car museums, little special places in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And should be a good all-around program. And if you're in the Kingman area, in the near future, I'll be posting some information. Mojave Community College is part of my community education programs that I teach there. I'll be leading walking tours on some of the old Wagon Road and downtown Kingman and the Route 66 corridor. And Kingman Main Street, it's got, Kingman.tours. Check out the website, and you can go to the sample tour, see what we're building, what we're doing. And this is all being done, no government, no city money. It's all donations and sponsors. And we're moving this thing forward. It's a project that we could probably take to other communities too. Very good. Yes, Labor Day weekend. How could I forget? I hope everybody's got plans to spend with some family and friends and reflect on Labor Day a little bit and celebrate this amazing country. And good time for barbecues. Laura, take care. Andy, sure want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And, well, until we meet again next week, my friends, it's time to say Adios, and vaya con Dios, mi amigos.
Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.